Welcome to the Celebrating Women podcast, co-hosted by Mandee Montana and Ashley Fisher, a podcast that celebrates women, their issues, their thoughts, their lives, conversations that celebrate their gifts, their talents, their courage. It's the Celebrating Women podcast. Presented by Hand & Stone Massage and Facial Spa in Tyler, Texas. Hey, it's Mandee Montana, and you know Mother's Day is fast approaching. If you haven't selected a gift for your mom yet, consider a gift card from Hand & Stone Massage and Facial Spa in Tyler. You know, they're located in the Cumberland Shopping Center, and this is your opportunity to treat mom to the ultimate self-care experience. By purchasing a spa package and receiving a free facial gift card, you can let mom indulge in moments of pampering and relaxation, you know, that she might not get on a regular basis. So visit Hand & Stone in Tyler today or check out handandstonetyler.com to treat mom right this Mother's Day.
Welcome back to the Celebrating Women podcast. I am Ashley Fisher.
I'm Mandee Montana.
And it's just Mandee and I in the studio today against the soft neon light of our pink Celebrating Women sign.
I love this sign. I'm so glad you found that. Did you find it on Amazon?
Yeah.
I thought so. It's beautiful.
Yep.
I love it so much. And it's kind of an overcast day. So it's, I don't know, I feel like we're in like the Pacific Northwest, but we're not. Like it's got Twilight vibes.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, like we could be in Forks.
Oh my.
I've been to Forks. Have you ever been to Forks?
No.
It is a nothing town.
I think
like literally nothing. The only thing in
Yeah.
Forks that you recognize is the sign.
Okay.
There's no like cute little street with like the restaurant and like the, no, it's just like nothing.
You know, I think I saw a documentary on it when Twilight was like really, really popular. Like maybe in between the last two movies or something, there was a small, short Twilight documentary on like the town of Forks. And I think I watched that and remembered it being like, yeah, we created something out of nothing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But there's so much beauty, like natural beauty up there
Yes.
that I do want to go visit. So did you go specifically for that reason, or were you
No.
also in the Pacific Northwest and you were like, hey, we're not that far from Forks?
I think honestly it was a very innocent stumble. Like Bradley, one of our very favorite trips before we had kids was we flew into Seattle and we drove down and kind of did the Highway 1 thing.
Nice.
I went to San Francisco over however many days. And on that road trip, we just, I don't know if like we saw that it was coming and it was in close vicinity to where we were, or if we stumbled into it somehow, or if he, like knowing that I kind of liked it at the time, like if he surprised me, I don't know. All I know is that I have a sign of me standing in front of that Forks sign with 2 thumbs up.
Oh, how cute.
And then we looked and we're like, there is literally nothing else here. So,
Okay, I think I want to revisit this conversation. We were talking before we got on the mics about something that like, is there anything we've never talked about that we should talk about?
Yeah.
I want to talk about Twilight with you.
oh, that'd be fun. Yeah.
Okay, we're going to revisit that. But that's not why we're here today. It kind of makes sense, though. It sort of makes sense because we're in sort of a transition.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah, we're in a transition.
Yeah, we are.
We're just a little past a year. We celebrated our 1-year anniversary, but you have another anniversary that's happening with the Lipedema Mama's podcast.
I do. We are coming up on a year. April 26th will be a year that we put out our first episode. And at about the 11-month mark, we surpassed 100,000 listens, which...
Congratulations.
Love you. Thank you.
I love you too. That's amazing, Ashley.
Yeah. So I'm all in my feels
You're in your
today.
feels.
I am.
It's such an accomplishment. I'm so thrilled for you. And I know like the origin of this starting,
Yeah.
you had sort of at the, like maybe the same week,
I
within
mean,
days, within
yeah.
hours,
Yeah.
had also had a conversation with Shawn about starting the Lipedema Mama's podcast. And you and I kind of pulled this one together quickly.
Yep.
And then shortly after that, you were like, okay, now I know I have all the like technical basics.
You taught me like, here's the device that you need to record. Here's this, here's that. And I said, Shawn, here's what Mandee said. And we ordered it and
You started?
we started. Yeah.
And you found an audience that was desperate
Yes.
for information and hope.
Yep.
And you guys were on your own personal journeys and you very authentically began sharing it. And what happened?
what happened is a bunch of amazing women that have gone so unseen for so much of their life felt seen and they felt heard. And we got connected with some amazing researchers and professionals that wanted to lend their voice to it too. And so it wasn't just us talking about, we have this disease and it sucks. It was, hey, here's some resources that you can trust and that you can listen to and, can help kind of guide your journey. And it's been incredible. We've had people, listen and just say like, I feel so seen, or I listen to this and I just cry because it's for the first time that I feel like I'm sharing it with somebody, or I listen to your podcast and now I know that this is what I have too, Mm-hmm. It's just been really powerful. I think, for all the great feedback that we've gotten from listeners, I think for Shawn and I, it's just been so healing to take something that we had no power in for so long and just do something good with it. It's been very healing for us. We're kind of blown away, honestly, and have, plans to take it further,
So what was the first... So I know when we talked about this previously, a little less than a year ago, when you talked about your diagnosis on an episode, I think you shared this part. If not, I know you've shared it with me personally, that you felt like God was asking you to live this out loud.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So, in May of 2022, I find out that lipedema is a thing. Mm-hmm. And it's like, wow, okay, that's probably what I've been dealing with. I had no idea. Mm-hmm. Kind of put it on the shelf for a little while. January of 23, I get diagnosed. And at the time, I'm searching everywhere. I'm searching Amazon. I'm searching Google. I'm searching YouTube. All is there a podcast? And is there an Instagram account? And really the only Instagram account that I could find that was consistently putting out content was Shawn's. Mm-hmm. And she had at the time over 100,000 followers.
Wow.
She was doing really, really well. And she had only had her account for about 8 months at that time. So, she had a couple of reels go viral, and it, she's used that platform really, really well and done really well with it. And so she would put up a reel and I would comment, or I finally got to where, I would ask a question and she would actually respond back. And I thought, well, that's great. I started getting this feeling, having my own diagnosis and learning more about it. I felt really strongly that the Lord was saying, I want you to live out loud with this. And I said, no, sir.
I'm not ready.
I said, no, mm-hmm. Because this is not, no illness or disease is pretty, but this one affects, such deep parts of our womanhood, how we look.
Our psyche.
Our
mindset, all of it. Yeah.
And the very last thing, I literally spent years wearing blue jeans hiding because I didn't want people to see, So the thought of taking a picture and putting it on Instagram, are you kidding me? But I kept feeling that prodding. And I even messaged Shawn one day. I said, do you think there's a need for more accounts to spread awareness? And she's like, yes, do it. Mm-hmm. And I, again, I'd be just going along my merry way. Felt like the Lord, I want you to live out loud with this. And no, sir. Mm-hmm. And it was about the third or fourth time that he said it that I just was like, okay. So I made my first post, and it was a picture of my ankles in all of their glory with a post, and, went on from there. And almost immediately, women messaging me like, oh my gosh, just relating. And that, again, there's such healing in that kind of a community, and that, mm-hmm. in that I see you kind of a thing. So I just kept leaning into that. I kept leaning in, even though it was really uncomfortable. And I'll be honest, 1 year prior to that, I sat on the couch and spoke with a friend of mine about how Instagram influencers annoyed the hell out of me, how I thought it was so stupid. And now I'm like, oh, I'm eating crow. I'm eating crow. But I see
But you were also uncomfortable in the skin that you were living in
yes.
that moment. And I feel like that's a reflection of where
Yeah.
You know, and that's okay.
Yeah, it is. And
you grew, and that's okay too.
And you learn that like, oh, there's actually like meaning behind this, and it's making an impact. It's just been such a cool journey. And so
when did it sort of take off on the podcast? So you started your Instagram account, you talked to Shawn, you know, and she said, yes, we need more awareness. And then at some point you guys talked and said, we should do a podcast.
So here's the thing. She, like I said, was sitting at over 100,000 followers. You know, when you reach that amount of following, you have your pick of like affiliates that you want to have, of connections. I mean, you kind of...
They start coming out of the woodworks.
They do. And they were. Like we got to the place where we were like voice messaging back and forth through Instagram. And one day, just out of a conversation we were having, she said, you know, hey, I have been approached by a few people wanting to do a podcast. I want to do a podcast, but I know that I need a partner. Is that something you would be interested in? Mind you, I had 339 followers at the time. I had more followers on my personal Instagram page at the time than I had right then.
You had a lot more time with your personal Instagram.
Yes. Yeah. She was like, I have instinct about people and I just have a feeling. She goes, but let's meet. Let's just see how we feel about each other. And so we met in the DFW area and connected real quick. We've found over this last year that like our strengths are so complementary to one another. Like, I mean, it was just it's really been like a match made in heaven, you know? And so we got to work, all of that happening right around the same time we were talking about celebrating women. And I'm learning about all this audio stuff. The fact I was the tech person on Lipedema Mamas and the fact that it didn't crash and burn is like the miracle of all miracles.
No, it's not.
And I have to give you a lot of credit because had it not been for you, I don't know what we would be doing.
You would have figured it out. Ashley, I don't think you give yourself enough credit. There's so many skill sets that translate from photography to audio. I mean, you're just working with a different medium.
Yeah.
But the technology's not that different. I mean, you deal with photography in layers. Like when you're editing, you deal with audio in layers when you're editing. There's a start and a stop. There's aperture is like volume. There's so many correlations that are intuitive.
Overwhelming. Is, you know, it's like
that's true.
Nikon or Canon. It, you know, what device do you record on? Like all that.
Well, we got to give props to Mike.
Yes,
in the Cologne podcast.
Thanks, Mike.
Mike pointed me in the right direction to begin with. I mean, I had a little bit of background in broadcast, not podcast, but I was like, how does that translate?
Yeah.
You know, it's a little bit different. So I appreciate that, but really, you guys took it.
Yeah.
And the content is what's important, right?
Yeah.
Like you can have all the technical know-how, but if you don't have strong content, nothing's going to happen. So you got started.
Yeah. And people were already really vested in Shawn. They loved watching her story. And even though I didn't have as big of a following, the people that knew about me were vested in me too. And so they were excited. And again, they've been this population of women that go so unheard. Even when they try to be heard, they have gone unheard for so long. They were just excited, like, oh, you mean you're going to put a voice to this? You know, they were just excited. And so our first episode was my story, and it had a great number of listens. And then Shawn's story had a great number. We've kind of, from the beginning, we've averaged a really great number every episode. And I think that just speaks to, I'm just not going to have a chip on my shoulder about, oh, it's us. It is the fact that these women have just struggled and suffered for so long and had no resource.
There's a need.
There's a need. And it was, and nobody was doing anything.
We met
a need. And hopefully we're going to continue to do that. And so that's kind of what leads us into this next part.
So I'm going to backtrack just a little bit because I'm curious. So you did your 2 stories. At what point did you start offering resources and start connecting with maybe the medical community?
Pretty quickly, because I'm going to tell you what, Shawn is a go-getter.
Yeah.
And again, because of her connections that she was already making, and I mean, it's just true. You can do a lot, and you have a lot of clout when you got a lot of numbers on your Instagram account.
For sure.
And so she was the one that started just reaching out. I want to see what our 3rd episode was because I feel like we had a guest.
I feel like you may have told me that because you guys were doing online recording of your guests before you and I ever did it, like a long time before you and I ever did it. And I remember it being a challenge early on because here in our studio where we record, we didn't have Wi-Fi for a while.
Yeah.
And so we were borrowing Wi-Fi signals from some of our kind neighbors. And then we finally got it set up and where we have that capability now. But I feel like maybe even that first episode, you guys, like we might have had to borrow Wi-Fi.
Yeah, we did. I was.
We were trying to get it set up, but there was a little bit of a challenge.
There was some snafus, and I was reaching for that Wi-Fi from the people underneath us over one, and it wasn't great connection. So I didn't even remember this, but our first episode is my story. Our second episode is with Dr. Catherine Sayo, and Catherine Sayo is like the grandmother of lipedema in my mind. She is responsible for bringing knowledge about lipedema from the UK to the States. That was episode 2.
Wow. And that was through Shawn's connections because she had been sharing. How long had she, you said 8 months?
8 months.
Wow.
And that's just where, that's just where I feel like all along it's just been a God thing, because you you cannot concoct these things. You just can't. It's like, so
that's why he was telling you to live it out loud, because all these other things were falling into place at the same time.
Exactly.
You just didn't know it.
No idea. I had no idea. So, our second, so we didn't even post Shawn's episode until 1, 2, 3, 4. The 5th episode was her story.
Okay.
So
you were very quickly connecting the dots between, we have found a population of women that are struggling, suffering, have a desire to be seen, to be understood, and to feel better and to live a healthier life.
Yep.
But we don't know where to go with the people who knew how to help them.
Exactly. When somebody finds out that they have this, it's so overwhelming. Because you scour the internet and you find all kinds of information. And of course, a lot of that information conflicts, and it's like, what do I do? What do I not do? And so finding these voices who can just speak to it in a way that, they have expertise on it. It's not just offering an opinion. It's like Dr. Amron was our episode 5. He's my surgeon. Well, he's been treating this for over 20 years. He's done thousands upon thousands of lipedema surgeries. He is an expert in his field.
I'm amazed that he's been doing this for 20 years and people still don't have a clue what it is.
He said last year, June is Lipedema Awareness Month. And last June, he said, this is the first time that I feel like lipedema awareness is actually getting some traction. Like there's actual awareness going on.
Wow.
So, and, lipedema has been defined as a disease by Mayo Clinic since the 40s.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. But just not readily diagnosed.
Yes. And so that's what we always say. Lipedema is not rare. It is unfortunately rarely diagnosed. And that's what by doing things like the podcast and networking and reaching out to people, we're hoping to bring awareness so that people don't go unseen. Like Charlie is, lipedema is genetic. Charlie's my daughter. And so in her chart now, because I made sure to bring awareness to her pediatrician, is lipedema. We're going to monitor her for these symptoms because they can come on at puberty. And if they do, Charlie is going to be at such an advantage because we can start conservative therapies that could keep her from ever progressing. That's the thing. It's if you are at stage 0, or you are starting to show signs and you begin these conservative measures, you might not ever progress. There are women out there who have stayed at a stage 1 for 30 years because And
conservative measures include like compression.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Something, nowhere near surgery.
No.
What you and Shawn have encountered.
Yeah, she might not ever have to do that because we'll know what we need to do,
Oh my gosh. So this is so exciting. I know you're coming up on a year. By the time this actually goes live, you'll probably be celebrating a year. And I know that you and Shawn have been putting together some resources kind of in another avenue. But before we get to that, by the time this airs, you will have already spoken at a conference that you attended as a guest for the first time a year ago, right?
Yeah.
So what does that look like?
Crazy. It's just wild what can happen in a year. But last year, my surgeon's office reached out And they said there's this conference and it's called FDRS. It's Fat Disorders Resource Society. And they hold a conference once a year, and you can go in person or virtually. Well, Dr. Amron's office, the Roxbury Institute in Beverly Hills, they were the gold sponsor. And they were gathering some patient ambassadors and asked, like, hey, would you like to come? They knew I was scheduled for my first surgery in May. And they said, we'll fly you out. We'd love for you to come. Would you like to come? Like, yeah. So
I want to learn more.
I do, because it's very unique in that, most conferences that you hear about as far as like for medical things are usually for professionals. Mm-hmm. This is very unique in that it is for professionals and patients alike. And so in that ballroom, you've got surgeons, you have therapists, you have researchers, and you have the people living with the thing day in, day out.
That's so important.
It is. And it's neat to see the professionals lend their ear to the patients.
Yeah.
Like you stand around and you just watch them as they lean in and they're listening to these women's stories. And after so much medical gaslighting that these women have been through,
right,
it's amazing to watch.
That's what I was just thinking. Like, that is not the typical response. And I don't mean to hate on doctors. I very much appreciate our medical community. Yep. I just also know a lot of times they've got a job to do. Mm-hmm. And it's a bit of a business, and they've got to get people in and out the door and taken care of as quickly as possible.
And unfortunately, some go by the mindset of, if I didn't hear about it in medical school, it doesn't exist.
Right. And medical school was a long time ago for a lot of them.
It was, but, lipedema is not largely taught yet. You were working on it.
Yeah.
But, there are a lot of people that...
It's not going to readily come to mind for them anyway, because they may have never heard of it.
Right. They're going to say lymphedema? Mm-hmm. No. Mm-hmm.
Right. So a year ago, you went as a guest of Dr. Amron's. Mm-hmm. This year, you and Shawn are speaking?
We're speaking. So Saturday is like the day where it's like fire hydrant of information. All the professionals and researchers and everybody... presents, and then Sunday they have they set this apart for patient stories, and they had more submissions this year than they've ever had for people who wanted to speak. And so Shawn and I, on a whim, this was even before I knew I was going to be invited back. I just thought, let's just try. Mm-hmm. So we submitted to be speakers, and we were waiting to hear back, and then I got a phone call from the doctor's office saying, we want to bring you back again, which was to be an ambassador and represent them, which is great. And then the next day, we got an email that we were accepted as speakers. So Sunday morning, we'll be sharing just our story in a little bit more depth about our individual personal stories with lipedema, how we met, how we, got together, and then now what we're doing to help. So
tell me what you're doing now to help, because you're going to continue the Lipedema Mamas podcast.
Yes.
But you're also creating a more robust resource for people who are diagnosed or think they might have it.
Mm-hmm. So in this year, it's been so interesting because anytime we put out a reel or an episode or whatever, we are constantly getting the same questions and constantly getting people who are new to this going, oh, I think this is what I have, or I just got diagnosed. Now what do I do? And so we're going to have a library of resources that help people know, here's what you do, and save them, hopefully, the hours and days and months of scouring the internet alone, save them that time and give them something that they can really take off and run with. And so we've been creating some online courses. One will be a free mini course, what is lipedema and how do I get diagnosed? Because that's the top 2 questions that women have when they're first entering into this world. And then once they're diagnosed, it's like, well, now what? Because managing this disease is very possible, but it can be very overwhelming. And so our first course will be just a comprehensive, here's all the conservative managements. And, this is a buffet. You go pick out a few, that work for your lifestyle, but you're going to have the information about everything here. Mm-hmm. And then another one will be the surgery route, which is a massive undertaking for women who decide that they think that they want to do that. And so everything from how do you vet a surgeon? What questions do you ask at a consult? What should I look for in a good surgeon? Can I go to the surgeon next door? No, not necessarily. What do I pack and how do I recover? What should I expect? What should my caregiver expect? All the things. And this is the start of what we are going to make an ongoing library. We want to continue making these courses and just, again, give people good resources to know how to navigate this disease. Like eventually, how do you talk with your preteen daughter about the fact that she might have lipedema, And,
right.
And again, this isn't just Shawn and I talking. This is us bringing in those professional voices to say, here's what you do, So yeah, that's where we are.
Are you considering launching soon, or are you just still in the depths of like organizing and like where are you at with your process?
We're in the depths. It is a huge undertaking, but we'll be announcing it on the week of our anniversary that this is what's coming, and people can go pre-order the first course. We're not just going to be having these courses, we're creating an online community. Instagram has been such a fabulous home for lippy ladies, as we call them. Facebook can sometimes be hot or cold. It can be kind of a scary place. And so we wanted to also create a community where women can have a safe place to come and ask your questions. And, people that are really vested in us, can get more time with us, is what that's going to be like. So that's called The Circle. So that'll be a little membership opportunity that'll be good. And so we are working on that. My husband is the most amazing man in the world, because while we are eyeballs deep in creating content and trying to plan, I'll look over at him at night. What you doing? I'm working on y'all's website. And he's putting the thing together, and it's been amazing. So we'll announce that this is all coming in a couple of weeks and then officially launch in June.
So with all of this on your plate and the fact that you are a wife, you are a mom, you have a thriving professional photography business, and you hang out with me occasionally. You and I have been talking off mic a little bit about this, but you really need to give your time to this.
Yeah.
Because you really feel called to serve this just exceptional group of women that need you.
Yeah.
So we might be hearing a little bit less of you here, but you'll still be around.
Listen, y'all can't get rid of me.
No, we can't. You created this whole thing, The concept started with you.
And you know what is so interesting that I didn't really connect until right now, but 6 years ago when I held that Celebrating Women event, Shelby spoke and it was fantastic. And I ended it by just giving one little encouragement to that room full of women, which was this: give God your yes.
And you did. And look what happened.
Yeah. So sometimes
you got a big yes back.
I did. But sometimes doing that means what you say yes to, you also are saying no to something else, because we can't actually say yes to everything, no matter how badly we'd like to.
Right.
And that's not easy. That's not easy at all. But it's just, I've learned enough. I'm on my way to learning that giving your yes and giving it well is important, not only for me, but for you,
for all of us.
For all of us.
Yeah.
And so even though it makes me sad to think that I won't be here as often, again, y'all can't get rid of me. So I'll still be around.
No. So. And just give us some grace on this, because we don't know exactly what this is going to look like moving forward. We're still kind of, I say Mandee is still kind of developing.
And listen,
what's next?
And I'm going to tell you guys, Mandee is an amazing friend, because when I tell you I was sweating bullets before, no, I knew you would be gracious and loving and wonderful. I just didn't want to hurt you. I didn't want to add stress. I didn't want to disappoint. I didn't want to do any of those things, even though I knew you would be gracious. But she's just amazing. And and I've told her too, I'm not, hopping out tomorrow. So, but there is going to be that little stint of transition and kind of finding a new rhythm. And I really genuinely feel like the rhythm that you fall into is going to be the next step up for Celebrating Women. I just feel confident that it's going to be exactly what you want it to be, what we know it can be. And it's just going to fall into place. I know it will.
That's so kind. Again, this spawned from Oh, now I'm going to get emotional. But this all started with a friendship. Mm-hmm. This started with the two of us having deep, heartfelt conversations about life.
Yep.
And at some point, and I still don't remember who said it. It doesn't matter. But one of us said to the other, should this be a podcast? Over coffee.
Yeah.
And despite the fact that it's not had extreme growth the way yours has, I do feel like it's finding people who need it, you know? And like, one of the things that I've learned about podcasting from you, from Mike, from people who've had successful ones, the biggest thing is continue to put out content. Eventually you're going to find what it is that's resonating with people. And it just happens faster for some than it does for others. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you don't have an audience and that you don't have,
Exactly.
right? That you're not serving someone.
Right.
And I guess my thought with this, and it has been with other things that I've pursued in the past, if I'm helping one person, if I'm serving one person with what I'm doing, there's value there.
Absolutely. And I have had conversations with real life women who will come up to me and say, I love your podcast. I love Celebrating Women. I was listening in the car the other day and I just cried, or I just love, they love it. And I think, that there's such value in that. And I know that will continue and it's going to grow. But again, for me, if it's making a difference in one, great. Time well spent.
Right.
Right.
So I cannot wait though to see, I can wait. I'm just excited to see where you go with serving the lipedema community. Yeah. I mean, it's been really amazing to watch you the last year grow and shrink at the same time.
Yeah.
I mean, truly. I mean, you've always been beautiful, but to feel like yourself again and to go through this process of like shedding the weight of physically, but emotionally and mentally. Yeah. And I mean, it's just been such a really cool thing to watch as your friend.
Yeah. Yeah.
And develop more. I mean, I've never seen you as not confident, Ashley.
Yeah.
Don't misunderstand this, but you've developed a new level of confidence especially in utilizing your voice.
Yeah. And that's just been such a, I mean, if I wish that I could communicate how multi-layered, multifaceted that statement is, and what a gift this space has been and what a gift you are.
Oh, well, you are too. Well, I think we're going to wrap this episode because we're both getting emotional and we love each other a lot. But we've got more in store. Some more interviews in the future, and apparently we're going to talk about Twilight at some point. So if there's anything you guys really want to hear us talk about, though, a topic you want to hear Ashley and I visit, please let us know on social, via email. And to that point, if you want to come in and have a conversation with me, as you know, Ashley's going to be in a little bit less and there's something that's really on your heart, let me know that too, because again, transition, asking for grace, I have some ideas. I'm not totally lost in space here. I have some ideas. I don't know if it's what you guys will want, though, those of you that have been around for several months now. So feedback is appreciated and welcomed. Of course, be kind, but
yeah, please
be kind, and feedback is welcome.
Yep. Well, it's going to be good, friend. I'm excited.
It is going to be good. I can't wait to hear your next update.
I can't wait to hear yours.
The Celebrating Women podcast wants to hear from you. Email us a voice message to celebratingwomenpodcast@gmail.com. We would love to hear your story or the story of an incredible woman you know. Become part of the conversation on social media. Facebook.com/celebratingwomenpodcast. On Instagram, search Celebrating Women Podcast. The Celebrating Women podcast has been presented by Hand and Stone Massage and Facial Spa in Tyler, Texas. Book your appointment today. Stop by the spa in Cumberland Shopping Center or online at handandstonetyler.com. The Celebrating Women podcast is created and hosted by Mandee Montana and Ashley Fisher. Support the show for as little as $3 per month at celebratingwomenpodcast.buzzsprout.com or visit our show notes. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to subscribe to the Celebrating Women podcast.